Hi, I'm Justin Rosen-Smolin, and I'm Vice President for Thriving Communities and Partnerships at Reconstructing Judaism. A couple of months ago, some 600 people from across our movement came together virtually for a convening to explore the shared values that shape our connection to Israel and our vision for a safe and vibrant future for Israelis and Palestinians. On this webpage, you'll find recordings of selected sessions from the event, related reading, listening, and more. And we're so excited to share these materials with you. And today, I'm very pleased to be joined by my dear colleagues, Rabbi Deborah Waxman, President of Reconstructing Judaism, and Seth Rosen, our board chair. And we're going to reflect on the day of learning that we had, and importantly, build on the conversation, which we hope will be a great framing and a jumping off point for you to explore some of these materials. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
It's so good to be with you.
So let's get started. Deborah, can you tell us what's unique about a Reconstructionist approach to having difficult conversations? What is that process like? And even as the events in our world and the moment shifts, what's constant and what can we learn from a Reconstructionist approach here?
Thank you so much for that question and for all of your efforts around the convening, Justin. It was really an extraordinary day of being together. We talked a lot of times in the Reconstructionist movement about how committed to process we are, and that's absolutely a sensibility that we brought to this convening. I know that the overall approach that informed the convening was that we understood ourselves writ large to be a covenantal community, that we understood that we were going to center relationships, we were going to center staying connected with each other, whatever it is that we were going to hear. We were going to try as hard as possible to keep our hearts open along with our ears, and to really try to return again and again to the holiness and the importance, the centrality of community, whether it's the individual congregations that make up the Reconstructionist movement, or in this instance, the larger convening. And, within that container of a covenantal community with lots and lots of difference within it, we regularly, the process is that we articulate values, we articulate principles that we think are incredibly important and appropriate for the moment. So for the convening, there was a really wonderful steering committee. You were both on it. Thank you also to you, Seth, for all of your efforts and your vision for the day. And a subcommittee on which Seth sat generated a set of values to help us uh, create covenantal community on that particular day. And we had a set of values, which are posted on the website, and we also had a set of norms to guide our behavior. And so those, I think, are the elements or some of the elements, at least, of a Reconstructionist approach. The larger container of understanding ourselves to be in abiding relationship with each other, the fleshing out of values that were appropriate to the moment, and then the creation of norms to help us make our way through a challenging conversation, or a set of challenging conversations.
Thank you so much, Deborah. In light of the process that we went through and the journey we went on in real time at the 3-hour convening, Seth, I'm wondering if you can take us through why we decided to host these difficult conversations, um, which at times can be personal and emotional, and why have we decided to make them widely available for so many of us to learn from beyond the day?
Thanks, Justin. I think we probably all agree that the great challenge of the Jewish world writ large these days is, how do we maintain community? How do we build community? How do we preserve our community as a place from which we can draw strength? At a time when, in some ways, we feel more divided than we felt in my lifetime, anyway. And I think, as Deborah alluded to a minute ago, in a Reconstructionist approach, I think we do that by listening to each other. and thinking about what one another is saying, and using what we hear to help shape our own thoughts. Not that uh, we all end up agreeing with each other, but that we all recognize the values that we share in common. We recognize how, even when those common values can lead us to very different conclusions about very important things, we can stay with each other. That is not the work of 1 3-hour session in one afternoon on Zoom. That is the work of each of us in our home communities. That's the work of each of us in our families. That's the work of each of us with our friends and our colleagues. And it's hope that the materials that we've gathered and that we're making available will fuel those discussions, will empower people to reach out to one another, to decide that you don't build community by not talking about these hard issues, but that you build community about talking about them, listening to each other, identifying what the moral center of each of your arguments is, and how we can draw on those moral centers to continue to have community be what it's been for, I think, many people in the Reconstructionist movement and across Judaism, a source of strength and a source of wisdom that will endure across generations through hard times.
Seth, I really appreciate you reminding us of the fundamentals of a Reconstructionist approach to what it means to build community across and sometimes very hard and painful lines of difference, and also how we can draw strength from both that process and what it means to co-create community in that vision. That's certainly something I took from working with both of you on the steering committee, and of course our afternoon of learning. I'm wondering if there are any moments or teachings from that day that stand out for you. And as folks sort of make their way through the sessions we've posted, where might they start?
I would encourage people to start where the convening itself started. Very early on, we began with a 5-minute video with people from within the Reconstructionist movement answering the question of what does Israel mean to you? It was created by the very same person who's creating this video, Sam Locks, who does amazing, amazing work. And we had several hundred people who answered this question. And what we heard was a wide range of answers, full of love and pain and hope and commitment in a way that I just found, I wasn't surprised. I was incredibly deeply moved. And it really is an amazing, I think, mirror reflection of the Reconstructionist movement. That's one of the places I would really encourage people to dive in. It's a very low stakes commitment with I think a tremendous amount of reward that comes back.
I would say two things. One, I would urge people to listen to the initial plenary session where rabbis, the Hemdi rabbis from across our movement, talked about their own perspectives, their own relationship with Israel, and I think it served its purpose as a really good grounding and a glimpse of what the breadth of our movement is about. And then, Justin, I'm going to make you blush. The other place I would go, especially if I was a member of a Reconstructionist community or a leader of such a community, is to the study session that Justin led about how some of our congregations, in particular two of our congregations, have structured, worked on, brought to life conversations about Israel and Palestine since October 7th. I think what I came away with was the sense that the communities that really are willing to engage in this way, they're maintaining the strong bonds of community that characterized them before that. They're articulating clearly what their community stands for, and they're attracting members because they've made a clear statement, and people can understand that this is a place where they can come, where they can bring their whole selves, and where they can learn. And I think I learned a lot from that session, and I hope people will listen into it.
I'll just put another plug in. I thought the opening plenary was extraordinary, and so too the closing plenary. Really, just beautiful reflection. And the whole day was really extraordinary. And we packed a ton in 3 hours, and there's so much more we could have done. And part of the benefit of this is that not every workshop in the middle part of the day was recorded, but many of them were, so people can go through them at their own pace. I will say that the times that we brought everybody together in the opening and the closing plenaries, they really did the depth and the depth and the breadth of perspectives, and the eloquence and again and the heart that came through was really moving, as well as instructive, and even at times gave a little bit of hope. Certainly gave inspiration.
Well, hope and inspiration are definitely uh, feelings and phenomenon that are in too short supply right now. And I will say that in my position, in my work with both of you and our colleagues throughout the movement, I am drawing a lot of hope and inspiration on how we can translate our values into building covenantal community, into building relationships across lines of difference, into forging a bond and a connection to Israel and to Israelis and Palestinians in service of a more peaceful and just and vibrant future for all. And I thought this convening was a really good springboard for this work. So now I'm going to invite our listeners to explore this page. It's filled with videos, related reading and listening and learning opportunities. And we believe that these are relevant for this moment and as we move forward, as what we learned that day and how we convened and explored together really reflects our movement's values and commitments for a vibrant and a peaceful and a just future. And I'd also love to hear from you. How are you and your community using and engaging with these materials? What did you find meaningful? What can we improve on? What else would you like to see? And what type of programming would you like to see from Reconstructing Judaism to help us better to connect to Israel, to connect to Israelis and Palestinians, to better understand the moment and what the future can be? You can reach me at jrsmolin@reconstructingjudaism.org, and I look forward to being in touch and to learning together. Thank you so much.